Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about all things board game related. Today we're bringing you a Kickstarter preview for an upcoming game, an expansion actually, to Role Player. This one's called Monsters and Minions, and it's a good one.
It is. This is a really good expansion. You know, a lot of games, some use expansions, some don't need expansions. This one was a great game in and of itself, but the layers that they've added with this one are really, really interesting.
That's right. We're going to lightly touch on how to play as we go through it. We're going to go through each of the 4 different steps within turn and add the new elements into the game as we introduce those. So, as you see, we have a 5-player game set up. That's new to this game. The original game only was 2 to 4 players, and they've also added a solo variant for players to play through.
Right, and in addition, there's a new player board as well.
Yeah.
Or a couple new player boards, right? We have one of them here, which is the Dark Elf. We don't have that on the table, but you're going to get new player boards, all the the cards that you need for the
5th player.
The 5th player.
Also added in that, you're going to get new dice, one of each of the colored dice, since there's more players, and you're going to get boost dice.
Right, the boost dice are really cool. These are transparent sort of dice that don't have the standard 1 to 6 on them. I think you said they range from 3 to 8.
That's right.
Now, the rub here is that they don't benefit you when you're trying to get the colors that you need in the various objectives in the game, but they're huge numbers.
Yeah, and they help you with your attribute levels for hitting each of those goals that you need to hit. So the game works in the exact same way, except the market this time. With the addition of the Monsters and Minions expansion, you're going to add plus 2 cards, more than the number of players participating. So in a 5-player game, there's going to be 7 cards in the market. You're also adding some experience tokens, some injury and honor tokens to the game. So, at the start, first player is going to roll the dice as normal, and they're going to seed the cards according to the highest value to the lowest value, just like it works in the original game.
Right.
And then the players are going to pull off those dice and place them onto their player board, again, just the way the original game was played.
Right, and as you pull those off, it sets the order in which you're going to take the next step, which is very different in this game because it's not just the market phase anymore. You're going to be either going to the market and doing what you'd normally do, taking a card, or discarding one for money, or fighting a minion this time, which is the biggest aspect of this expansion for sure.
Yeah, so when you choose to fight a minion, there's always going to be one minion that is face up and available to be fought during that round. When a minion is defeated, a new one will immediately populate so another player can fight an additional minion. Each of these minions has a stat line at the bottom telling you what you have to roll in order to defeat them. When you defeat them, they typically will give you gold or experience. They will also give you honor or injuries if you roll high or low. You can also gain it as a trophy, basically chopping off its head and being able to use it at a later time within the game. But what you need to roll is according to whatever it says in the text box there. There are new combat dice in here, which aren't put into your player board. They're just simply rolled for the combat in the game. You will always roll one inherent red die, which is just a 1 through 6 pip die.
Yeah, and then each minion, like Jeremy said, is going to have different text on it that sort of keys off of different attributes or aspects of the game. So one minion might say, get another combat die for every die you have placed in your dexterity row.
Yeah.
So depending on how you've developed your character, you might be better suited to fight a minion than other players at the table at any given time.
Right. So you'll keep going around the table until all the players are done, and then you have a normal cleanup phase. What's cool about this, though, is that you will now gain experience through the course of the game. These experience can be used in order to do a couple different things. There's actually 4 things you can do with your experience. 1, to spend 1 single experience, you can re-roll any of those combat die that you have. 2, you can get rid of one of the injuries. If you roll low against some of these minions, they will actually injure you, and you get a -1 token. That is a negative modifier to your battle against the monster or the boss within the game. You can also spend 3 experience to gain an additional combat die to roll, and then you can spend 4 experience, and this is the big one. You get to take any one of your attribute actions just as if you would place the die into that position and take that action.
And that's huge because in this game, particularly in a 4 and 5 player game, you're seeding your player board with a lot of dice, which is going to limit the number of times that you take those actions to begin with. I think it's one of the best improvements over the original game to give people that opportunity to use those actions a little bit more.
Yeah, it just gives you options. More options within the game. And you'll keep playing this until all of the spaces are filled, and then you'll have the opportunity to fight a boss. Now, what's cool about this, as you defeat minions through the course of the game, when you actually kill a minion, that means you hit its highest threshold in combat dice. You can actually collect that minion, get whatever rewards it gives you, but it also allows you to look at one of the boss's attributes.
Yeah, you're learning a little bit about what the final boss is going to be like. The first one is its location.
Right.
And then it's the
obstacle.
And then it's attack. So as you learn these things by defeating minions, you're going to learn basically similar to the minion text. The boss is going to have text on all 3 of those cards that benefit you from knowing, you know, maybe more white dice that you have on your board is going to help you during the boss fight. So as you know that, the earlier you know that, the better you're going to be prepared to fight the boss at the end of the game.
And why do you want to fight the boss? Because he also has a threshold in dice. At the very end, every player at the table is going to try to fight the boss as a one-on-one fight. That boss has a minimum number of hit points that you have to inflict upon him in order to get points. The more damage, the more victory points you will get. And you will always roll 1 red die, just as you would against a minion, but you add additional die depending upon what those locations, those obstacles, and those attacks contribute.
Yeah, and the other cool thing is this all is woven together really well with a lot of the new cards in the marketplace too.
Yeah.
Because many of the new cards will trigger off of those same sorts of things. So for instance, I had a card, you know, there's a boss that keyed off of the number of white dice you have.
Right.
There might be a card in the marketplace that doubles the effect of that, perhaps, so that it makes it even that much more important for you to go after that. And if early in the game you know that about the boss, but no one else does, it gives you a path and another variable in your decision making, which makes all of the decisions in the game a lot more interesting.
Now, the boss will be modified at the end by the number of injuries that you've taken. So if you roll a natural 20 with your dice, and you've taken 3 injuries, that 20 is going to turn into a 17. However, if you've gained honor from defeating very specific minions, that will add that honor into your die roll. And you're going to add those victory points in and then determine the winner in that way. Now, I have to say, this expansion adds quite a bit of element to the game.
It does.
I mean, it makes it more robust. It gives players, as we said many times, it gives you more options on your market phase, and it just doesn't tie you into just going the weapon route, the attribute route, the trait route, the skill route, and so forth.
Yeah, I would say, you know, when it comes to expansions, like we said at the beginning of the video, some games need them, some games don't. And then there's games where you play them, and the other question that people ask is like, well, would you ever play the game without it? And I have to say, after playing it with this expansion, I don't know that I'd ever play it without it. The base game was great. We both loved it. But after playing it with this expansion, I can't imagine ever playing it without this one.
No, I 100% agree. There are enough monsters in the deck. There's 6 different monsters. Each monster...
Boss monsters,
fights,
right?
Yeah, boss monsters. They have them for both 2 and up players, and they have a solo boss monster, which is a little bit easier. Then each of these monsters also has 3 different locations, 3 different obstacles, and 3 different attacks, which give variety to each of those monsters. And also, all the boss monsters do something differently as well. They will modify the dice that you're rolling in combat against them. For instance, with the vampire himself, once you contribute all of your dice, any 4s will get removed.
Right.
So that is Role Player Monsters and Minions. Check this one on Kickstarter. We love the base game anyway, so if you are into role player, this is a no-brainer. If you guys have any questions, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and everything else that we do here at Man vs. Meeple, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Season 1 of Man vs. Meeple is sponsored by our friends at TMG Games. And at Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.